Time for another episode of Council Bluffs Today. I am Todd Studer. Council Bluffs Today presented by Waldstein Plumbing, and we have a guest in studio today. This is Georgia Van Gundy, and she is the Deputy Director for Iowa Workforce Development.
Oh.
Good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
you
thanks
guys
for having
are out traveling.
We
aren't
are.
you?
Yeah, we're going around the state, having meetings, open meetings with businesses, just to kind of learn what are some of your workforce issues and how, as we have a department, can be helpful to them. And then also talking about our business engagement consultants. So we have business engagement consultants around the state, and their sole job is to be working with businesses every day to help them meet their workforce issues.
How well do you think the business community around the state of Iowa is aware of all of the services you provide?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're going around the state.
Okay.
So that division has only been at our department for about 3 years now, and it's evolved over time. So it started with our business engagement consultants, and then we've gotten additional programs, and we have the Iowa Office of Apprenticeship. So that is why we're going around the state, to help businesses understand that we are here in your community to help you every day to meet those workforce needs. And there's a ton of programs out there that we don't expect everybody to know, but they don't really know of the resources that can be helpful. So that's why we have our consultants to be doing that.
Now, you made the trip to Council Bluffs to
Yes.
speak with business owners. How did that go?
It was good. It is kind of interesting. So as we've had about 8 of these meetings so far around the state, and there are some very common themes that we're hearing from employers, like we would just like for people to show up and be engaged in their job. So we've got that.
That's been something that goes back quite a while. 'Cause back when I was in my 20s, somebody told me, I'll pay you $15 an hour if you tell me you'll show up every day.
Yes.
And that is not a new
No.
request that we hear.
No, it's not a new request, but we are hearing it everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's surprising to me when they talk about some people will just walk off the job in the middle of the day. Because they're not interested in the job. So we hear that a lot. You know, we're hearing a lot about population. I mean, I'm sure you know, in Iowa, we have a fairly stagnant population and we have an aging population. So I think for employers, they're very concerned about how are they going to build that pipeline of the future. And that's something that we're talking to them about while we're out meeting with them. It's hard for them to meet the workforce needs now, but as they see that aging population, like how are we going to get people to replace those workers?
Are there industries that you focus on more than others? I mean, is this blue collar, white collar? How does this work?
Well, it's both. I would tell you in the state, obviously, you know, we have a large manufacturing base within the state of Iowa, but we also have a lot of healthcare. If you look at our top 25 jobs in demand every month, the top 10 and specifically around the top 5 are always healthcare. So we have a lot of jobs in demand in healthcare, and we have a lot of jobs in demand in manufacturing. So we're hearing everything from how do we get more people into the skilled trades position, which to your point before, we've heard that for years, you know, and how do we get people to be more interested in healthcare, because not only is our population not growing, it's aging. So we're going to continue to need more healthcare workers within the state of Iowa.
When you talk about getting people more interested in a particular field, is that something that Iowa Workforce does as well?
Yeah, and in particular, this fall, we are going to be going out to communities and bringing in specifically healthcare providers and talking to them about different methods to sort of show that progression of how if I start with you, maybe in a CNA position, it might not pay as much, but then how do I grow within healthcare and progress and get a better job and better pay? So we're going to be coming out to healthcare providers and talking to them about that. There were some federal funds that we had at the state level that the governor put out for healthcare providers to put in apprenticeships, as an example, or earn and learn type strategies to help build their pipeline. Well, that program is no longer there, but what we learned from that is how healthcare providers can make it successful. So now we're going to go out and take those best practices, bring other healthcare providers together, and show how they were able to put in apprenticeships or earn and learn to help build that pipeline.
We've heard from many different people here about that concept of a silver tsunami, of an aging population that's going to need more services. And that problem or challenge, if you will, trickles down to so many different areas.
Yeah.
You know, and especially when it comes to we need facilities, but we also need staff in those facilities.
Yes. That's exactly right. And just in general, in workforce in general, not just in healthcare. So we've been talking when we go out about work-based learning. So work-based learning is how do we get high school students to be interested in different careers within their community, and maybe having them participate in an apprenticeship or an internship or some type of hands-on experience with that employer so that they become aware of those jobs and hopefully will move into a job with them in the future. And some of these can be a job that's a 2-year degree. Some of these can be jobs where they go right after high school and they're trained on the job. And some of them can be 4-year degrees. But we're trying to get employers to be more engaged that way so that we're keeping people here in the state of Iowa, because that's the other thing I'm sure you hear is, how do we keep our young people here? And oftentimes it's just helping them understand what are those opportunities that are out there for.
Are you looking for something to do close to home? Go Local Iowa brings Southwest Iowa events together in one place, from live music and fundraisers to festivals, family activities, and community celebrations. It's also a place to discover local businesses and support the people who keep our communities moving. Before you make your weekend plans, check golocaliowa.org. Go Local Iowa. Find what's happening right here at home. Technology should work for you, not against you. At ThinkSpace IT, they provide expert IT solutions to keep your business running smoothly and securely. From cybersecurity and cloud services to network management and tech support, they simplify IT so you can focus on what matters most. Stay protected, stay connected, stay ahead. Visit ThinkSpaceIT.com. What you're talking about has been a topic of discussion here in Council Bluffs, especially with having a stagnant population for as long as we have and an aging population. So, because we have a definite lack of younger families raising school-age children. That's our area that we really lack in here.
Yeah.
Those are the workers. Those are the people that, whether it be an employee or a business owner or whoever, those are who we're trying to attract here.
Yes.
Sounds to me from what you're saying, you're finding this to be a statewide thing.
Oh, yeah. This is definitely a statewide, especially in your rural communities. How do you keep people there? But, I mean, we were just in Marshalltown, the same issue. We were in Dubuque, the same issue. And especially, you have a lot of competition with Omaha, obviously. And so, how do you keep them here? And we had one community that we went to, and they even talked about people who are transitioning in jobs, maybe when they're older, not high school, but not older.
Right, yeah.
But really, they don't know sometimes what are those job opportunities within their own hometown, because maybe they've worked somewhere for 15 years and they don't know what this manufacturer across the town does, and it's really helping make some awareness for that as well. So we can help make those connections through our business engagement consultants within those communities, which is great.
Well, the days of our parents staying at a job for 35 to 40 years, that's an anomaly now.
Yes.
That's no longer the standard quo, the status quo of what people do. And I think everybody just kind of expects it.
Yeah.
We know that there's going to be a certain amount of attrition and a certain amount of turnover when it comes to our staff. Every year that's going to happen. And I don't think that even you can have the best workplace in the world.
Right.
You're still going to experience that.
Right. Which is such an expense for an employer, to onboard somebody and have them and then have that turnover. And so really employers are looking for those ways to really show an employee how they have that future there within that company, which is why we're working with them on apprenticeships and more earn to learn, because we hope that people will stay there for a longer period of time. But you're right. I think most employers are like, okay, I hope we get you for 3 to 5 years. And then we're lucky at the end of the day if we do that. You really work on both sides with this, because you have the employers that obviously you want to have good relationships with and want them to know the services you provide, but you are also reaching out to people that
to fill those positions.
Yes.
How is that going?
Well, I think that's one thing. You know, Iowa Workforce Development has had our American Job Centers across the state for a long time. And that is exactly what you explained. So these are individuals who are coming in our door who want to find a job or who need to be skilled up to get into a job. And there's different programs that we can help with them in order to do that. And so I think historically people have thought of us as just more of an unemployment agency where people just come in and file their unemployment. But there's so many more resources and connections that we can make for people coming in our doors who want to find employment. And then our BECs, when our business engagement consultants, when they're out there talking to companies, they'll say, hey, I need in fact, Jeff, our local business engagement consultant, gave a great example today. He had an employer that reached out, a hard to fill position, and Jeff was able to come back to our American Job Centers and work with our veterans coordinators, and they found some candidates through that program, and they interviewed 3 different individuals, and they hired one. So we find we have different resources, whether it's returning citizens, whether it's veterans, underemployed individuals, unemployed individuals, or just people looking for a new job. They can all be within our database at the American Job Centers. And we're working with them to help them find positions in our state.
I'm not sure if you can answer this or not, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you feel that maybe between employers and employees, there's a little bit of a disconnect now, that expectations aren't quite matching the way that they used to?
Probably. I mean, in a lot, if you look at employers, there are some employers who have 4 generations of individuals working for them. So think about that. You have the older generation who has certain expectations, and then you have the younger generation who has a whole different set of expectations when they're coming into the workplace. And so I think as leaders, it's a challenge. Like, how do you get those to match up? And especially, you know, your mentors are the people who have been there for a while. And your younger people, again, have different expectations. So I do think that's a challenge in the workplace. I don't know if you read the book Anxious Generation, but it's talking about how cell phones or being on cell phones really retrains your mind. And I think as employers, you need to understand kind of how this generation whose mind is being retrained is entering the workforce and how we need to work with that. So I do think there's disconnect because each generation has their own way of working. You know, you have one generation who's like, yep, I'm going to be at work at 6 in the morning and I'm going to work till 7 at night and I'm not going to take a lunch and I'm not going to go on vacation. And then you have a generation that's coming in who's like, yeah, I want to work from home. I don't really want to work 40 hours. I want to have, you know, all this flexibility. And so I think it does create friction in the workforce.
I listen to a lot of business podcasts. And one of the things that I'm trying to figure out as my business grows is how can I incorporate the goals of those that I bring in into what I am already doing?
Yeah.
That seems to be something that if you're looking for retention, if you can give them, they're achieving what they want to achieve right where they're at, they're more likely that they're going to stick around.
Yeah. And I think for a smaller business, that's easier task to accomplish,
Yes.
right? I think in bigger businesses, it's, you know, it's more of a standardized environment. So they don't necessarily have the opportunity to learn about what, you know, some of the younger generation's goals are, and then how do they acclimate to that. So I think you're right, because that generation, they're driven more by purpose than they are necessarily money and status. Is there a great purpose that I'm going to work for every day? And that's what's going to keep me there, you know? And so how as employers do you shift to meet that? Because I think you're going to have to if you want to keep them for a longer period of time.
If you're looking for a laid-back spot with great food and even better company, it's the Mile Away on Old Lincoln Highway north of Council Bluffs. This family-run bar and grill is your go-to for mouth-watering wings, unbeatable weekly specials, and a welcoming atmosphere that feels like home. So, if you're catching a game, enjoying one of those specials, or just unwinding after a long day, the Mile Away has you covered. Open every day, Tuesday through Sunday at 8 for breakfast, and don't forget them at lunch and dinner time as well. It's the Mile Away, Old Lincoln Highway, north of Council Bluffs. Council Bluffs Today is brought to you by Keith Jones, your Edward Jones financial advisor in Council Bluffs. Learn how he can help you reach your financial goals. Visit edwardjones.com for more. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You talked about some of the commonalities of different parts of the state that you've been in. Are you seeing any differences? Are things different in Dubuque than they are in Council Bluffs?
Well,
'Cause you can't get mileage-wise, you can't get much farther apart
right.
than those two.
I am going to give you here in Council Bluffs some great credit. I mean, you have engaged employers who are trying different things to try to grow their workforce and keep them here. So they are, as we learned today, they're very engaged in workforce, in work-based learning. So attracting younger people. They are very open to looking at different ways to attract a workforce and keep them there. Working with the high schools, learning best practices. So that's awesome. Not every community we go to do you see that engagement from employers. So that's where you see some of the differences. You have some that are very engaged, and maybe that's because you have more competition next to Omaha, or like you talked about, your community has come together with the recognition that we want to try to keep people here. So we've got to do things different in order to do that. So I think that also drives it too. Like, how has that community come together, has a strategy and set goals that they want to reach?
That's actually very encouraging to hear from someone who doesn't live here. So you have kind of a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
You know, of you're not looking through rose-colored glasses or a lens of negativity either. You can actually see it for what it is. So to hear that, it to me is encouraging, because it's been conversations we've been having around here for a while, that we need to be better at retaining not just people for jobs, but people to live here. It's all part of the same thing. And
I'd say some of the similarities is, challenges with housing or challenges with transportation. You might not have transportation here, but I mean, some of those challenges seem similar among the communities in which we've had conversations. But, the other part of why we're coming out and listening is, as a state agency, we don't feel like we should create solutions in a vacuum and then come out to you and say, hey, I hope these work.
Right.
But it's more about, okay, what are your challenges and how do we take them back to try to find solutions? So we went around the state last fall and we heard a lot about how can we have more assistance in upskilling and retraining people. So again, trying to keep them within that employer. So then that feedback gave us the opportunity to apply for a federal grant. So we did receive it. It's $4.3 million. We're just now kicking it off June 29th. And so manufacturers can apply for additional dollars for upskilling. So that's another reason why we're coming out and listening. There's a lot of more opportunity at the federal level to get grants than we've had before. And so really being able to listen to communities and take that back and have an understanding of what should we be then applying for or searching for at the state level to help communities.
Well, it's encouraging to me to know that, and as I've gotten to know Jeff more locally here, about the different programs that you have, because he would be one he could tell you that I said, what, really? That's real? You do that? And so I think that as a business owner, and speaking for other business owners, we need to be more aware of the resources, I think, that your office provides.
It's hard. I mean, there's a lot, but and that's why he's here. I mean, it's just, you're sitting and running your business all day long, right? So sometimes it's hard to look up and be like, okay, so now what are the other things I should be looking at? And so our job is to try to make that easier, so that we're coming to you and helping you understand what are those programs and how can we be helpful. I mean, you have a lot of companies who don't have a lot of HR staff that can do some of this work. And so again, with Jeff coming to their door and saying, what are your workforce needs? And then how can I be helpful with that and provide some of those services? I think it's just a good way to be hand in glove to helping them reach their workforce needs that they have.
Well, I'm thrilled you guys were here, and grateful for all of the information and for the programs that you guys are doing. A little bit jealous. I mean, you get out there and see all the different parts of the state,
which is fun.
Because I have been all over the state, and it's very different. From if you go up like into the Fort Dodge area up in northwest Iowa, it's flat. And you come down here, and similar to northeast Iowa, but not exactly like northeast Iowa. It's just we have such great topography around the state, and
we do.
It's one of the reasons why I'm pretty proud to be from the state that I'm in.
Yeah, last year I actually had the opportunity to go to Pikes Peak State Park, which
Oh,
I didn't
yeah,
realize we had in Iowa. Somebody said to me, "Oh, I was trying to think of places to go." They're like, "Go to Pikes Peak," and I'm like, "And I want to go to Colorado." And they're like, "No, in Iowa." And I'm like, "I've lived here all my life, and I didn't know we had it, and it was beautiful."
Oh, it's
just
gorgeous,
beautiful.
isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just there last year.
Yeah,
at,
I
at
think
that park.
for people who think that Iowa is not pretty, it's we just got back from the western part of the United States, and I think Iowa is so pretty.
Yeah.
If you just sit back and appreciate it, and I think, and this goes back to the population issue, it's Iowans are very humble. So how do we do a better job of telling our story about that?
It's the exact thing where we're not an island unto ourselves here in Council Bluffs. This is something going on everywhere.
Right.
I just had somebody in here in that chair earlier today talking about we need to do a better job of telling our own story. And that focus was just on Council Bluffs. But as you said, you're everywhere, so you see it.
Yeah.
It's not just us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. We do need to be better. And we need to brag a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, because it's a pretty great place to live.
Yeah.
All
it
right.
is.
Well, Georgia Van Gundy, thank you so much for coming
thanks
in.
for your time.
And also, we thank you for watching this episode of Council Bluffs Today. Be sure to hit like, share, follow, even subscribe, because when you do that, it helps the algorithm push this information out even farther of everything that Georgia was talking about. And who knows, maybe one of your friends or neighbors could actually get a job based off of information they just found out here today. So thank you in advance for doing that. My name's Todd Studer. We'll see you next time.